And record. So, okay, you should be recording. Did you guys receive the
Yeah.
notice? Okay. This is a great question, and I think it's important for all hosts to kind of stay in the loop about these things, and you don't want to accidentally be offering a discount that you didn't necessarily approve. So, to answer your question in a short version, Dana, you don't have to. You don't have to. You can opt out of that 10% early bird promotional discount. But there may be perks to doing that. And I think because of the different booking patterns these days, let's do, you may see some benefit to doing this because guests are not necessarily booking far out like they used to. And I think that in the past handful of years, there has been more, there's been less options or less inventory. And so there was more opportunity for guests to book your calendars far out. Now the booking trends tend to be guests are booking last minute because they know there's going to be inventory. So to have this idea of, well, I'm going to jack up my rates 3 times far out, it's not as realistic, I feel like, as maybe it used to be. So with that said, it all depends on your risk tolerance as well. If you'd like to be more of a host that it secures your bookings and feels like you can sleep better at night, knowing that you've got those bookings on your calendar, you're first to get booked at a rate that you're happy with, then this could be an option for you to offer kind of that early bird discount. So this is all, I want everyone to kind of take this with a grain of salt and adapt this to your own individual properties. But I do offer a far out, an early bird discount, a very small one, and I make adjustments in my price labs to compensate for that. It's a strategy. I think that there is a bit of an algorithm boost with that, especially if VRBO, Airbnb are promoting that. There's certain marketing benefits to it that these OTAs, online travel agencies, aka VRBO, Airbnb, etc., they are doing marketing on your behalf. And when you utilize these features, you're getting certain strike throughs, you're getting certain call outs, email pushes, all the things. So there is some benefit to utilize some of these things. So I hesitate to show some of my settings and pricing sometimes because I think often this can get misconstrued to, well, let me just copy exactly what Emily does. This is all part of a bigger strategy plan that I have with Price Labs and Airbnb and separate on VRBO. So do not copy and paste what I do. I don't advise that. Little disclaimer there. So what it looks like in Airbnb is in your price settings, you can go to more discounts and you can offer an early bird discount. This is what I have right now for this moment in time based on my seasonality and what I have going on with my current listing. But you can make this 10%, 5 months in advance and adjust your prices accordingly so you're happy with those. So I guess the thing is with VRBO, they're basically saying, hey, we're changing this setting for you. And maybe they have some hopes that hosts are not going to see the email and they are trying to attract as many travelers to their platform. They're always competing with Airbnb. And maybe, this is a feature they're hoping that hosts don't see. Um, and yeah, so there's pros and cons to opting in versus opting out. And I would just suggest that you really have a good idea of your specific pricing profiles per property and per platform. Does that
So,
make sense?
yeah, it does. But then when we go on to Price Labs, can we adjust the pricing specific for VRBO and have a separate pricing like listed? I guess we're gonna have to do that now anyway for Airbnb to hike up the price to make up the difference of like whatever percentage more that we're gonna be responsible for versus the guest. So I guess can you adjust your pricing for what shows up on VRBO and maybe they're going to offer 10%, maybe you increase the price on Price Labs 5%. So really you're only getting, it's only showing maybe a 5% discount than what you would have had at your regular price, right?
Yeah, you can't. Do you use Hospitable or a property or channel manager?
Hos- Hospitable, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're not going to be able to have different settings for different uh, channels or
Mm-hmm.
OTAs on Price Labs. So the whole point of Price Labs is to have centralized pricing that pushes out to your property management system. So whatever your pricing is set in Price Labs will push out to each OTA. Within Hospitable, you can set different markups. And then within each OTA, you can set different calendar promotions, like I just demonstrated in Airbnb. So you can do
Okay,
that
so
both in VRBO. Just like think of it as the length of stay discount that you can put in Airbnb. It's very
uh-huh.
similar. So it's like another version of a custom promotion that you can offer per property through that OTA.
So you set your pricing to Price Labs as you normally would. Then you
Mhm.
go into Hospitable and you could technically, I don't know, say put a 5% markup, or if you want to keep the same exact pricing, but you want it to appear as though you're giving a discount on like VRBO, you could, I guess, technically mark up your pricing 10% on Hospitable, and then VRBO is going to give the 10% early bird, whatever discount off of the marked up 10% that you had already put in Hospitable, but it would look like it's being 10% off.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. The way that I tend to do it is I do all of my pricing within Price Labs and then I utilize markups in Hospitable only for the service fees. So remember that the markup in Hospitable, everyone should be factoring in this new 15% host service fee, changing your markup for that in Hospitable. So that would be your baseline. So air,
Emily,
yeah.
hospital is going, or hospitality, or however you say it, is going to, they're actually going to be adjusting your pricing for you for the Airbnb.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Automatically, they'll just do it for you. So
Fabulous. Yeah, awesome. And everyone should have received an email about that. Or I think it's just on the dashboard right now in Hospitable, but great point.
they're
Like,
actually doing it. They're going to be doing it after today's meeting they had. They're doing it on all cleaning and everything. They're marking it up.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. They
that is,
weren't doing it 2 weeks ago, but now they have changed that. So
that's so great. I feel like there's been so much confusion on the internet about all of that. And so what Hospitable is doing, like you were saying before, Steve, they're just like, they get it, I feel like, and they have the host's best interest in mind. So they're like, you know what? We're not going to have any hosts coming at us being like, I didn't know how to do this. They're just doing it on our behalf, which is awesome. Um, but so you got to think of those markups as your baseline. And then if you would like to mark up even further, in addition to the service fee markups in Hospitable, you can. But you can also in Price Labs highlight dates and add a percent above what your pricing is set at. So you can select dates and increase those rates by, 10% or whatever. Um, so that when the VRBO 10% discount applies, then you're actually getting booked at what your nightly rate would be. It's a little bit confusing. Um, so I would probably do it that way, or you can just adjust your base price in Price Labs, so that your prices are higher, and then you're offering this discount. So, or another option is to actually allow the discount and secure the far out booking, update your cancellation policies, so that you're not getting booked super far out and then having a super flexible cancellation policy and that end up kind of biting you in the butt. There's a handful of ways to do it. Uh, and there's pros and cons to each avenue. I feel like it's best to find what works for you, and kind of go from there. But yeah, everyone should have received. I see this. I'm looking at the email right now from VRBO, and it says coming soon, 10% early booking promotion for your listing. And it's trying to tell you that vacation rental travelers uh, rank pricing as their top concern when choosing a stay. So they're trying to market it as, hey, guests are going to book your place if they feel like they're getting a discount. And it's true. It's psychology at the end of the day. So hopefully that answers your question, at least a surface level, Dana, and you can kind of take that and
Yeah,
run.
that's great. No, I we were undecided. Obviously, I know from listening to these calls and hearing you and Becky talk, like if there's some promotion or some new thing that these OTAs are using, they want you to take advantage of them and they're going to boost you more if you do that. If I don't know how much of a discount we want to be providing, so I'm trying to balance the discount or making it appear like there's a discount, but maybe we just mark up our prices a little bit so it looks like we're using their feature, but we're still getting the price that we were hoping to get.
Yeah. That's one definitely. There's a lot to mull over and kind of process and strategize, but essentially, yes, I think the way that you're describing it would benefit you in the long run. Also, what was I gonna say? Oh, it'll come back to me. Really great point. So anyone who's watching this recording, make sure you check your emails from VRBO and either opt in or out. I believe they recently did this with cancellation policies too, where they were automatically opting hosts into certain cancellation policies. So always check VRBO. It's easy to forget about. Um, with all that said, let's kind of talk about how to branch out to other OTAs, which you all know are online travel agencies. So there are pros and cons, like I mentioned before, to diversifying and listing on multiple platforms. You're reducing risk. So let's say something happens and you get suspended from Airbnb. You don't want to one day wake up and say, oh my gosh, how am I going to get bookings? At least if you have your listing set up on another site, then you can try to focus on that and at least have bookings until you can get unsuspended. Obviously, we don't want suspensions to happen in the first place, but anything can happen at any time. So it's always good to be prepared. Seasonality, it's good to have options or have visibility on other platforms for seasonality itself. So if we're just relying on one OTA, the likelihood that we're going to have high occupancy is going to decrease because we're not getting viewed as much. It's just not possible. So having more eyes on your property from different OTAs is going to increase your occupancy at the end of the day, especially in slower season. We want to be filling up those gaps as much as possible. Um, yeah, I think that's really the main points there. Um, so I think that there is also another side of this that's important to think about as a business owner as well, where I wrote here the opposing opinion is to double down on one platform only, knowing that you're carrying more risk, but you're going to potentially have benefits of racking up more reviews on one OTA, which obviously the more reviews that you have, the more reliable your listing looks and the more reliable to Airbnb you appear, and they can see any calendar blocks or, you know, essentially the more your calendar is blocked off, the less they're going to be able to push out your listing. Obviously, our Airbnb calendar gets blocked off when we have bookings for VRBO, so we're getting less views on Airbnb, so on and so forth. So you could make the argument that you're losing the potential traffic. So there's pros and cons to both. And I think that this opposing opinion is one that many hosts don't think about. And I'm here to be a mentor and a guide, not someone to tell you what you should or should not do with your listings. So I'm here to give you all of the information and all of the things to think about. Um, so yeah, I think that especially starting out, sometimes it can feel like there's a lot of pressure to have your listing, have everything set up perfectly. But I also don't see any harm necessarily in being listed on the OTA that brings us the most business, getting a handful of reviews there, establishing momentum, and then listing on VRBO, Booking.com, Peerspace, all the things that we're going to talk about today. So just to get your brains kind of mulling that over, pros and cons to both methods. And some people, keep in mind, you guys, if you're someone that's on the Facebook groups or Instagrams and you're getting pushed ads or someone telling you to do something one way versus the other way, they're usually selling you something. So, take that and then end up, make your own decisions for what works best for you. And don't just take everything that someone says at face value when they're trying to tell you to do one thing one way. That goes for direct bookings too. There's a lot of push right now. There's a lot of softwares um, and subscriptions that you can buy as a host to promote your direct booking sites. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the source of who's trying to convince you to do direct booking and why they're trying to convince you, and also look at your listing itself and determine if it's a property that is marketable to have its own reputable direct booking site and your personal portfolio. Do you have enough to offer to be trying to have your own Instagram direct booking master marketing plan? So, just to get all of that out there right off the bat, I think that's all important. So, we talked about the risks of single platform dependence. Airbnb really, at the end of the day, has control over your listing. They can refund guests without your permission. They can remove your listing suddenly out of nowhere with silence and no response. They can hide your listing in the algorithm where you may not even know that that's happening. Uh, and all it takes is one complaint from a guest. And that's just, at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. How many hosts, how many stays you're hosting, the likeliness of something happening is higher. Doesn't mean that it will happen, but the likeliness does increase just because of the numbers game. Um, and then Airbnb is the one paying you. So if a guest doesn't make payment and Airbnb doesn't get paid, you as the host don't get paid. So maybe they are freezing your payouts because of a safety dispute. So your business then, you're not able to have income. And that it's, we're working for ourselves, but also sometimes we're at the whim of these OTAs when we rely on them 100%. Also, if you get a bad review, if you get a handful of bad reviews just out of bad luck, then you're going to want to try to lean into other platforms. It's not easy these days to just rely solely on trying to delist your listing and relist it so that those bad reviews don't show up. They've made it almost impossible to do so unless you have paperwork demonstrating you have a change in management or a remodel, renovation, etc. So, um, this analogy I had is where leaning on one platform is almost like renting versus buying, which we all do here in this group, and we do it strategically. So it's not to say that it's a bad thing to rent versus buy, but you have to look at what your goals are at the end of the day. So take all of that and think about what is best for you, where you are in your journey, how many properties you have, etc. Also, how much time you have, because even like Dana was asking at the beginning of the call, she got this email from VRBO, and so there's a strategy on that OTA versus maybe a different strategy on Airbnb. You have to understand if you're going to be a host that has the time, bandwidth, operations to know how to run both platforms. A lot of this is centralized in Hospitable as your property management system. But maybe for those who aren't using a channel manager, it's something to think about. Okay. So the different categories of different platforms we'll talk about. So obviously short-term stays, mid-term stays, hourly/slash event-based rentals, direct booking websites, corporate housing, and relocation networks. So all of these things, all of these agencies or platforms have a different purpose. And not every home is meant to be on all of them, all of these different platforms. So you got to figure out what's worth your time and energy and have rationale for why you're listing on something, not just doing things willy-nilly or you're going to waste your time. So obviously you guys know the big ones. We don't really need to talk about Airbnb, VRBO, but it is important to highlight there are some differences between Airbnb and VRBO traffic. So a lot of times we're getting more family stays. Uh, a lot of traditional vacation markets have a lot of VRBO traffic. So think beach markets or what you think of when you think of traditional vacation markets, which tend to have more seasonality. Their fees are different. We talked about this at the beginning of the call. Their payout methods are a little bit different. Usually VRBO bookers tend to book at a higher value because of the clientele, and they have a more loyal guest base. So the demographics of Airbnb bookers versus VRBO bookers typically are, let's just say from experience, I have noticed that a lot of the bookers on Airbnb are booking on behalf of the entire family. So it's typically, maybe the grandmother or the mother, father, they're booking for the entire family. Whereas on Airbnb, we're getting more groups that are traveling for bachelorette, bachelor parties, and they're splitting the total payment amongst each other. So their booking value is a little bit lower as an individual. I hope that makes sense. But it's important to think about how you're marketing your properties on each platform based on who's booking where. Something else to note is it can be the exact opposite, where a VRBO traveler is using VRBO because they have intentions, maybe of throwing a party or breaking the rules, and they don't want their pristine Airbnb account with all these 5-star reviews to get punished, or they were already kicked off the Airbnb platform, so they're choosing to book via VRBO now. I speak from experience. We had a very, very young booker on VRBO, which I found odd in the first place because a lot of times I'm not getting people in their 20s utilizing VRBO. And it was for obvious reasons. There was a party. So it happens. So just kind of looking at all of those different types of bookers is important. On VRBO, usually the visibility is a little bit lower for smaller properties, more urban properties. The connection right now between hospitable and VRBO is a little bit slower. So there's sometimes connection issues where VRBO messages may take longer. That is being resolved currently. I think, Steve, you may know this, but Hospitable is trying to have a direct API connection with VRBO versus the way that it's set up now, where they're not fully in sync with each other. Um, and then, yeah, I think that really covers it for the most part. Obviously, there's no air cover on VRBO. There is insurance, damage waivers, different options. So make sure you're familiar with both on Airbnb and VRBO, but it's not the same as Airbnb. It's not even close to uh, air cover, in my opinion. I actually think VRBO damage claims are easier for the few that I've had to submit. So depending on what policy you choose for your specific listings, um, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. I feel like a lot of times, there's more scams, I think, on Airbnb or on VRBO. I don't get them as much anymore because my listings are more established, and typically those scammers will try to target newer listings that aren't as established. So when I say scam, I say the type of uh, inquiry where it's, I don't know, just someone that's books selects a big chunk of your calendar for a really high rate and says something to try to get you to talk on WhatsApp or to ask you to tour your property. There's lots of examples in the past. Maybe they have them in Circle, but it's really common when you first list on VRBO to get those scams. I feel like less common than it is on Airbnb, likely because of their AI um, strengths and whatever methods they have for screening those types of guests to be able to sign up for an account in the first place on Airbnb versus VRBO. Okay, so then to talk a little bit about Booking.com. So Booking.com is another platform that you can list your listing on for visibility. There's definitely pros and cons. Some people I know will only list on Booking.com just for the visibility in hopes that someone may highlight their title and then do a Google search and get led to their direct booking website because they don't want to deal with Booking.com. I will say they're doing tons of advertisement right now, and they are growing in the market share. It's definitely not as user-friendly as Airbnb. The interface, I feel like Airbnb hasn't nailed down the user-friendliness for who's using their platform. Booking.com is just a little bit clunky. It is really meant for international travelers, people booking city apartments, a lot of last minute bookers. Their commissions are high, but we all know Airbnb is increasing their host commission as well. You're going to get more of a global exposure, more of a search engine reach, and yeah, the fraud risk tends to be higher. Guest screening is limited, and I don't know, some of their messaging, it's just harder to interact with guests before they stay. So I don't speak on Booking.com because I am not an expert in utilizing this OTA, but I highly, highly encourage everyone who's using Booking.com to make sure that their systems, operations, insurance, guest screening measures, understanding what kind of support they're going to get or not get on Booking.com, understand that before you list on Booking.com. The last thing you want, and maybe Shreya, you can speak to this if you're available, but the last thing you want is to have an issue expecting it to go like it would go on Airbnb when you have a damage claim, only to be surprised that there's minimal customer service or no coverage at all. So,
Agreed.
yeah.
I am.
Hey, do you want to, if you'd like, and this is not to bash Booking.com, it's a platform that you can and should use at some point in your journey. But Shreya, I don't know if you have a specific experience you'd like to share about.
Yes, I mean, I had two experience, especially given the season. Make sure if you are listing your property on booking.com, you're not having teenagers who are coming and having a party at your place. Because if you ask for compensation and damage claims and everything, it's really, really hard to get. And you don't like, there's like bare minimum amount that they give you, and it's a hassle to actually get somebody to like reach out to and tell them, and then they have like we haven't received this, and you're just going through multiple channels and all of that. So I mean, yeah, so I mean, I'm already preparing for the coming season, and I'm like, I've on booking.com, like I've changed all my policies. There's like no I've removed like instant books and all of that from booking.com, and increase like damage policies have changed, and yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's helpful. And it's just, I think at the end of the day, it's not the same as Airbnb, and it's okay that it's not the same. It's just that you have to go into utilizing other platforms with the right mindset and understanding of what types of bookers, what types of service, all the things. You have to understand that and then determine if it's worth it for you in your specific market, to spend the time and effort doing that. I would say a lot of people in this group do list on booking.com. I know lots of property managers that are um, fabulous managers that list on booking.com. They've done the work. They understand how it works and they get traffic from it. So at the end of the day, you have to make that decision, but don't catch yourself off guard with being like, "Oh my gosh, I my whole house was trashed and I have no insurance." Then you're going to be in the hole, and that's not fun for anybody. So I don't want that to happen to anyone.
Agreed. Like I've changed policies, but I'm still my property is still visible, and I've taken all the insurance for myself and the property. Like I've looked onto videos and tried to change policies and things as much as I can to prevent, but still keep the booking on booking.com.
Yeah. Yep. So that's hopeful. And you guys, this can happen. It's the same thing for Airbnb and VRBO as well. You don't want to just list on Airbnb willy-nilly, not knowing how the platform works at all. It's the same thing. It's just, I'm really trying to hone in the point that it's very different than Airbnb and you are less protected than Airbnb. So you've got to know kind of the ins and outs of each individual OTA and make your decisions based off of that. Definitely requiring IDs, deposits, all the things. There's also different insurance. that you can sign up for. So auto host is one. I was going to do an entire call on different insurances. So auto host is an example to help you with guest screening, damage waivers, security deposits, all the things, background checks, fraud detection. You can just go on the website yourself, and then we'll do a deep dive probably next week into these types of things. I talk about happy guests often, so you can go on their website if you're curious and just get an understanding. This is what I mean when I'm saying have your own separate insurance. Don't rely on the OTA necessarily to cover you when, I'm not going to say if, when you have a difficult guest or damage, whether it's intentional or not. It's just the name of the game. We're in hospitality. Okay, Expedia TripAdvisor. This is just one I wanted to throw out there. You can list on their website to get more eyes on your property. And I won't talk about that one too much, but I just wanted to list it just in case people are wondering, like, is it just Airbnb, VRBO, and Booking.com? No, there's other platforms you can list on that may bring in 1% of your bookings. But still, there's benefits to be listed in certain seasons, etc. Let's move on to midterm platforms. So everyone here knows about Furnish Finder. There are certain markets and certain properties that do really well on Furnish Finders and others that do not. So those really, vacation rental markets, like we talked about before, maybe don't bring in traveling professionals, and so they may not be the best for Furnish Finder. It's really inexpensive. I think they have platinum programs that you can sign up for that have more advertising and things like that. Or you can just sign up for 99 bucks and see what it's all about. But if you're near a hospital, if you're near, an Amazon, I don't know, places where corporate companies are going to relocate employees, it could be, maybe even college towns, there's reasons to book on short or midterm places. Know that on places like Furnish Finder, there's going to be negotiations. So there's strategy there. A lot of these travelers are very savvy. They're getting stipends and they want to keep as much in their pocket as possible, just like we all do. We want to keep as much money as possible and not give it all away if companies are paying for it. So just know there's going to be negotiations, there's going to be back and forth. You have to understand what you're willing to rent your property for, know your expenses. Don't go give away a month-long stay for $2,000 a month if your expenses are $3,000 a month. I've seen that happen, and I've seen people say, "Oh, I didn't know." Well, you have to know your numbers and know at least a base level of what you're willing to accept. I don't think any of us here just want to meet rent. I don't think that's ever the goal on a month-to-month or yearly basis. Knowing that some months in your slower season, you may just be meeting your minimum, but we have to look at revenue year over year. So that's important to factor in. But yeah, it definitely takes a little bit of time to kind of understand Furnished Finder. Um, it's just a little different. It's easy, but it's different. So you'll learn what kinds of questions you're getting, bids, all the things. But I think it's worth looking into if you'd like to have a hybrid method where you're taking both short-term and midterm rentals, especially to cover yourself in slower seasons. I actually just unintentionally got a midterm rental, but it worked out because it's for our slow season here. So it's kind of nice. And you can set restrictions in your online travel agencies for how long guests can book, if they can book 30 days or less or 30 days or more, and if it's instant or they have to request. So just make sure you're paying attention to those settings. You don't want to get caught off guard with a 60-night stay when you didn't mean to do that or you didn't have time to factor in your numbers. Um, so yeah, that's Furnished Finder for midterm rentals. I'm just
And
oh yeah.
Emily, one
Uh-huh.
thing I think I'm for like midterms, people should also consider where, the market that they're in and what's considered like, I guess, someone becoming a tenant, right? Because different states have different laws or rules where you don't want to get caught up in having a longer booking or a midterm rental. And then I don't know, we don't do that. We have short-term rental only, but I think like aren't, I would be concerned, I guess, of like a squatter, depending on where, you know, what the laws are, what rights they get as a midterm.
Yep. Yeah. So that really, even if we're not listing as a midterm, I think it's still important, just as real estate investors in general, to understand tenants' rights in your county and city. So that's a really great point. If you're accepting a 35 night stay and guests, I'm sorry, tenants should have rights to the property at 28 nights, then you better have a signed agreement that indicates they're not long-term renters or that, outlines the actual stay. So you don't get caught in a situation where you have squatters, which, if, for anyone who doesn't know what a squatter is, it is someone who refuses to pay rent and won't leave your property, and it takes evictions, lawyers, court to get them out of your listing. And if you don't have insurance for that, then it's even more risky. So, um, it's definitely important to have agreements in place for that. Good point. Also, CHBO, so corporate housing by owner, is another platform that you can list your property on to get those longer stays. Best for business travelers, relocating executives. I believe it was Becky, maybe a year or more ago, that did get a really big booking from CHBO, if I remember right. But I think she paid for the platinum subscription with CHBO. So if we go into CHBO, this is kind of what it looks like. Flexible living with corporate housing rentals. So you can, let's just see. I'm curious. I've never played around on this. Let's look at Arvada because Steve and I are both here. Let's go from October 15 to, let's just say, the 31st. Let's see what's out here and what it looks like. There's quite a bit available. So we are seeing some homes, and you can even tell right away, a lot of the people that are listing on these sites likely have to follow the regulations in Denver, where you have, if it's your primary residence, you don't get necessarily a short-term rental license, but you can rent for 30 days or more. And you can tell by the design that these are really more midterm rental furnished places. We're not seeing tons of games, hot tubs. Almost every picture is a living room. That was blowing my mind. Um, so it's different. It's definitely, midterm travelers aren't necessarily always looking for the glitz and glam that short-term rental travelers are looking for, because it's not a vacation. So it's super interesting. There's definitely still ways to, I mean, you still don't want to have unprofessional photos. You still want to have design. You want to be able to stand out. I don't see all of these look the same. It's just me. So maybe it's very similar where competition wouldn't be crazy. You could maybe land something really cool. So that is something worth looking into. I did mean to click on Furnish Finder for you guys just to show and demonstrate. So let's do the same thing on Furnish Finder. Let's go to, where should we go? Let's go to Charlotte. And let's do the same thing. Move-in date. Oh, and it has me put in my monthly budget. So let's just, oh my gosh, I want to see the 20,000 a month properties. Wouldn't that be fun? Okay, let's look for 5,000 or less. I didn't click apply. Okay, 4,800, whatever, same thing. So then we'll click search, and similar. So this looks like a nice clean listing, but it's very midterm rental. It's showing closet space, which we would not really show closet space in our Airbnb photos, where we don't really need to demonstrate to guests where they're going to hang up their clothes for a few nights. But as a midterm rental, you might want to see, where am I going to move in all of my stuff? Very similar to CHBO. showing a lot of exterior properties, but there's a lot of options. Wow. So people know where to list. That is definitely a thing. And you could still do really well by having really great pictures, really great design, doing the same strategies where you're picking a guest avatar. If you're marketing to traveling nurses, do they need a cozy space to work from home? If they're work from home nurses, probably not. That's not as common, but it is a thing. Yeah, if they're going to be bringing their pets, make sure you're photographing where the animal or the dog bowls and the toys or whatever, the backyard. So similar strategies to be able to get bookings in these for these longer stays like that. Same mindsets of the baseline information that you all have learned for trying to get short-term stays. So we talked about furnished finders, CHBO. I know I didn't put this one. I don't know why I didn't do this. ALE Solutions is a platform where essentially this company is going to pair families in distress. Maybe they had a flood. They're providing temporary housing through insurance. So they will usually kind of play as a middleman with the family or whoever is trying to be relocated. And then the insurance company is the one making the payout. So a lot of times you can get higher payouts, but it's more about connections, I would say, with ALE solutions where uh, it's better to have kind of a person or a contact and you have lots of properties or multiple properties that you can say, hey, I'm a lead for you because these agents are also trying to make sales and make placements. So if you can be a provider of someone who has lots of homes available, you'll likely be more likely to get that type of booking, if that makes sense. All right, so then I'll kind of go through these a little bit quicker. I'll leave like the last 5 minutes, so in a couple minutes here for any other questions. And if there's no questions, then we'll end a few minutes early. Peerspace is somewhere you can list. If you guys have to know your regulations in your area, you don't want to get caught breaking rules and getting your license taken away. So weigh the benefits there. I'm a rule follower by nature. I don't want to risk my license. We get asked all the time to host big events, and I'm just not willing to take that risk because I'd like to keep my license and I know the ins and outs of the various counties. But I have taken photo shoots at a property. I've taken, I think we had some documentary interviews done where literally someone was just using our couch and our background to do some filming. But same thing, you've got to have the right agreements, be priced right. It's kind of cool though. I would say, especially like someone like Dana and Frankie, your properties would probably do really well on somewhere like Peerspace because you can charge pretty good rates. So that is worth looking into. Um, yeah, and usually people aren't staying overnight, so you're just paying hourly, and then you can get your cleaners in there and get it all prepped for your next short-term rental guest. So it's good to fill in those gaps. Same thing, I think there's people definitely who are going to be negotiating on Peerspace. So be ready for that. It's the norm. Other platforms, you guys can just kind of read this. I did want to click on Swimply was one that I've heard of. I don't have a pool at any of my properties, but there's something available for everyone. You can even rent out backyards to have dog parties. So, Swimply you can use for pool parties. You got to have the right insurance. I can't speak on it personally because I've never used this, but kind of cool. I mean, even as a traveler, if you just wanted to go somewhere to host your family at a pool and you don't have access to one, it's super fun. I think it's a really cool idea. So, oh, pet swims. I didn't know they did that. Wow. Family swims, pool parties, solo self-care days, photo shoots, nighttime swims, a quick dip Let's check out the solo self-care day. I might need one. Cool. Anyway, I think this is fun. If you have a property with the pool, it could be another avenue for you to get some bookings and test it out, see if you like it. Again, check with your insurance, get the right agreements, all the things. I think Dina mentioned in the chat that there's a website for bachelor parties. I'm not sure about
Yeah, I
that.
think it's like Let's Batch or something. I've seen on like Instagram or something that is marketed, I guess, towards like, yeah, bridal parties or people traveling, and you can be either like a event, yeah, something like activities or accommodations for um those types of parties or whatever. So I didn't know if if you had any feedback on that. And I don't know that I think on there they don't take a fee, but I don't know if you have to like pay to join to be listed on there or how that works.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Partner with us. It looks like you have to
Yeah.
partnership. Bachelorette, bachelor, birthday, group trips, just a good time. Um, interesting. Yeah, I encourage if people are, even if you're someone that needs to plan parties for other people, this is
Hmm.
there's people have thought of everything, all of these fabulous ideas out in the world. I'm like, man, why didn't I think of that? So interesting. So places to stay. Oh, yeah, just looks like you can list your home. Let's check this out. I, yeah, I guess it probably, I mean, I don't know how many people have heard of it, but I guess if their marketing is good, where if someone's planning their bachelor or bachelorette party and they just type in, um, traveling for a bachelorette party, maybe these listings then pop up, and then that guest either ends up booking through this platform or then they copy the title and go into Airbnb and end up booking that way, but it's getting you viewed.
Hmm.
So, yeah, they're on this particular property. Maybe, nope, it's different, different listing. So yeah, cool. Another awesome idea. I will add that to my document. Um,
With the Pure Space option, or like when you've done the documentary, because we did get an inquiry for our first property about it, and then it was like almost exactly a year ago, and it was right before the hurricanes hit down in Florida, Milton. But it was for some like HBO documentary interview that they wanted to do in a few days there, and we were pretty new, and I mean, we're like, I guess so, like it's a booking, but it ended up being canceled because people weren't traveling with the impending hurricane. Um,
yeah.
but do you normally, like, what kind of pricing do you set, or do you keep your nightly rate, or is it different? Like, does that use Price Labs too? Like, I don't understand how that all works.
Yeah. So on Peerspace, you set an hourly rate and they have similar features like we were talking about earlier with like the early bird discounts. They have similar features to where if someone books your property for 8 hours or more, they get a certain amount of discount for more hours. So let's say you could book it at $100 an hour, and then you can add a cleaning fee in addition to that. You can allow instant book or not allow instant book. Any other, I think that there's options to add various fees, um, and then add those discounts for longer bookings, more hours, I think is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, every home, and I think I can't remember on Peerspace if they have an option to change your hourly rate based on the type of event. I think that there is. So like a wedding reception, you might charge more per hour than just a simple photo shoot. You can also, I think, add additional guest fees. Basically, you can set all the parameters for what you do or don't allow, but it's the same thing, like the less restrictions you have and the less fees and whatever, more discounts, the more likely you are to get pushed out to people to book. I've had a ton of requests for like bridal showers and baby showers. And even though I put, my house limit, they'll say something like, oh, I don't know, maybe 30 to 50 people. And it's like, did you even look at the listing? So, yeah, you gotta have the right copy and advertising and things just like you do in Airbnb. So, yeah. Awesome. Well, that's all I have. I think that what, the takeaway is here, you guys, is at the end of the day, you get to decide where you list your property. You get to decide how much time and effort you put into understanding the different platforms. It's not rocket science. It takes a little bit of upfront work to know what you're getting into with different platforms. And the biggest takeaway is to not get caught, I guess, in a situation where you didn't even have any idea what that platform, how they operate, where things get stolen or damaged, or your license gets taken away because of XYZ. So know what you're getting into, know that there are endless options, and that what works in one market isn't necessarily going to work in another market. So that's where your personal knowledge is going to be beneficial. So, okay, cool. Steve, please send your listing once it's done and live after you talk to Becky and everything. I'm super excited for you. Anyone else in the group that wants to share their listing when it's live? I'm thinking next week I'm going to talk a little bit about, we reviewed it a little bit today, talking about different like rental agreements and insurance platforms. And then the week after that, I was thinking of doing A, kind of a recap of what we've talked about in October, and B, I want to do a Q&A, listing audits, troubleshooting, talking about guest issues, like having as much back and forth as you guys want. So I would prepare everyone to have as much participation as possible. All right, that's all I have. See you guys.
Thanks, Becky.
Thanks.
For
Take care.
Emily.
We'll see you guys. Thank
Bye.
you.